What is going on? It's that time of the week again. It's hump day. I don't know if I've talked about this, but hump day is my favorite day of the week because we've reached the midpoint between Monday and Friday. And by the time that I do these lives, it's like toward the end of the day. So that means my week is more than half over. And as you can tell, I'm in Los Angeles. It's hot. I mean, the AC is running all day, but I wanted to bring a little bit of the summer vibes, a little bit more casual. Last week, I talked a little bit about personally just getting back to reality after traveling. And let me know what you've been up to this summer. Like, I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments, drop it in the chat if you're joining me. And I think, for me, I feel like the theme of this month, July, has definitely been just, getting things back together, as I mentioned in my last video. And it's funny though, because the wedding and event season is really gearing up, and August usually isn't that busy. It's July right now, but August isn't usually that busy. But I do have some things that I'm working on, which I'm very grateful for. But I freelance also, and there's pros and cons to it. As a planner, I work a lot by myself right now, anyway, at the stage of the business that I am. So I freelance to make money because I have to eat, I have to live, I need to have fun too, I need to make money. And I've accepted it. I think in the past, I used to get really bogged down in the fact that, dang, I have to freelance because I can't make it on my own. That's how I used to think about it. But I really kind of reframed it to be like, I'm filling in the gaps as I'm building, and that's going to take time. And I need the money regardless, right? And so once I accepted that, the road just forward was much more clear. And also, it helped me to just focus on things that mattered because the freelance job, it's a job to pay the bills, and I'm okay with that. That's usually what work is anyway, right? Like, I feel privileged and lucky to be able to build a business and life that I want, and who knows how long it's going to last, or if it's going to be forever. I don't know yet, but I get to be doing what I'm doing. And today it's a little bit about reframing your mind, just to segue into wedding planning when it comes to the frustrations of wedding planning. Because wedding planning is like everything else that can get frustrating. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Welcome to Wedding Planning Wednesdays, where I dive into my favorite wedding topic of the moment. I'm your host, Jane Yu. I own a company called UNS Events with my husband, John. We plan, design, and DJ weddings that are meant to feel authentically like you. We like to create details that really reflect your love story. And my main goal is to help engaged couples like you confidently make decisions throughout your wedding planning journey and hopefully have a little bit of fun while you're at it. If you haven't already, please download my wedding planning checklist and timeline. It is meant to help you do everything in phases and cut the overwhelm a little bit. And you can also check out my digital wedding planner, which is linked in the description below. Something that's been bringing me joy, as I like to always start with, I don't know, it's just moments to myself. And I feel like those quiet moments to myself, especially when it's busy, is really important. I don't wake up as early as I want to still because I'm not a morning person, but I still take the time, a few minutes every day, to journal in the morning, do my daily stoic practice, which is kind of fallen off the side. I don't even know if I'm using. I don't know. It's fallen off my plate. I literally don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically, it's kind of fallen to the wayside because I was traveling, and I'm picking it back up again. It really just helps me stay grounded every day. And then I also do like an evening routine where I journal as well. And I've been really cherishing those moments, getting back into it after not having done it for a while, especially when it's busy and work is pulling me in 4 million directions. So I've really been enjoying that time to myself. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about frustrations that comes with wedding planning, and not just from the perspective of a couple or client, but also from the industry and vendor side. And I wanted to try to give it some insights, not from one perspective or the other, but trying to sit in the shoes or the seat of both sides, because I think it's just on social media, on threads, just I see a lot of people talking about, you know, people being petty and people ghosting and people being too expensive, or, clients being terrible or whatnot. And I just kind of wanted to talk about all of that and what I think. And I wanted to just offer my insights as a wedding planner who's worked with many different kinds of couples. And also just as a person, as a human being trying to build a wedding planning business. And I hope that these insights help you whether you're in the industry or whether you're a couple planning your wedding, wherever you are in that journey right now. Um, I feel like this could be helpful, especially if you're feeling frustrated or disillusioned or any of that. So, first things first, everyone is different. This might seem like such an obvious thing, but literally everyone is different, from clients and couples to vendors. The way everyone operates, their personalities, what people think of as luxury, what people think are expensive or affordable or reasonable, whatever the case is, everyone is different. So you should not expect everyone to be the same. Does that make sense? Like, you shouldn't expect everyone to cater to what you think should happen, in the vendor client kind of relationship. And my note for couples is I wouldn't try to retrofit or have expectations from a vendor that you really want to hire. I wouldn't try to retrofit them within your expectations. Like, let's say you reach out to them, for example, and they're not quite offering what you need. You can always ask, but I wouldn't try to squeeze them for something that they don't offer, or try to change their package in a way that only fits what you want. Some vendors might be flexible for sure. I know I offer some flexibility just depending on what they're asking for, their budget, the time of year, honestly. If it's busy season, then I'm probably going to be less flexible because I'm not going to have the bandwidth to be flexible. So that's my note to couples. If someone is not the right fit, I think my advice is to move on to the next person, because if you're asking for something that they don't normally provide and they say yes, chances are maybe it's not going to go as well as you would want it to. And then on the other side of it, you're not going to be happy with what they're providing because it's not something that they're used to providing. Vendors, I would say, don't assume that like couples have a certain budget to work with. I think I do see a lot of people posting about like how it's really off-putting when vendors are like, what's your budget? Or like, this is my minimum, so don't even, like, kind of the attitude of like, don't even talk to me kind of thing. And I think to avoid this for vendors is to, if you're going to respond in that way, just put your pricing on the website, like on your website, right? Or send an automated message with your package information being like, hey, this is the level of investment, but I can see why it's off-putting if the approach or response or the language used in the response is going to be like, hey, you can't afford me unless X and X. That would just be, a little bit more, I think a little bit nicer or kinder of a response to people, being like, just offering them the information up front and letting them decide how they want to proceed, but not assuming that most people can't afford you. You know what I mean? I see a lot of that especially with people who do have bigger budgets, and then they're put off by the way the vendor responds because they're making it seem like, oh, you can't afford me, or make sure you can afford me, type of thing. So everyone's different. Remember that. And that's okay. Everyone can be different. Not everyone's going to be for everyone. And so I think that's why I say that. Number two, a tough love note to couples. You're not the experts when it comes to wedding planning. Most couples, unless you're an event planner yourself or in the industry, like most couples are planning it for the first time, right? Even if it's your second time, there might be a long time gap between your first and second wedding if you're planning a second wedding. And I think to dictate or try and dictate how vendors should act or what packages they should offer or whatnot, can feel a little bit discouraging to vendors. I think it's okay to have thoughts and also to give feedback, especially when the vendor asks for it. Like, I always want feedback from my clients, especially throughout the process, because I want to know, like, if I'm doing something that's not working. I want to know if there's a better way to do something. That's just how I am. But that's just like my little love note to you all. Like, look to the experts for sure for the answers, because they are going to be able to give it to you. But on the flip side, number three, something to think about: not every vendor is created equal, obviously, and not every wedding professional is professional or is an expert. And that's, I guess, the really hard part of it, especially in this world where anyone, even like me, who can just pop up on social media or on YouTube or whatever, just to chat about what they know, or what they think they know. But I think with one discovery call, you can kind of sense, you can smell the poop. You know what I mean? Like, you can definitely detect when someone is BSing. And the more you talk to people, the more you do your research to couples, the more you'll realize who actually knows what they're talking about, who actually cares about what they do. And that's just kind of the name of the game. Like, for example, or not for example, but the reason I say the thing about wedding professionals, I did make a video in the past about wedding vendors. And the truth of the matter is, not every, like, the wedding industry is made up of a lot of solopreneurs, people working for themselves, side hustlers. Like, it's not their main thing, right? So they probably have a day job. They might be doing this on the side. It's like a little creative endeavor. A lot of creatives who might not understand logistics or how to deal with clients, who don't understand budget as much, if they're planning. And on the other side of it, couples really need to be taught and led throughout the process. So if you're working with a vendor who doesn't know what they're really doing, and you're trying to work with a couple who really who's really not an expert because it's their first time planning a wedding, then all of that kind of provides a lot of friction. There's a lot of friction to be had. So that's just something to think about, because I feel like that'll kind of level set your expectations as a couple. Like, not everyone, they may present as professional in certain ways, like on social, they may seem like they know what they're talking about. But when you dig a little bit deeper, you might see maybe they are not actually experts. And I think it is tough and it can get frustrating as you're doing your research. But you'll find that if you're doing your research thoroughly and you take the time to do it, you'll be able to find the people that are the best fit for you. The next thing, the fourth thing I would say, is the money part of it all, right? Don't set a budget before doing your research. There's so much, I've looked a little bit, and I've also made a video about budgets. And budgets are there's such a range in every market, even in LA alone or Southern California alone, like you can have a wedding for 100 people for like at minimum 50K, right? But you can blow that out of the water up into six figures and beyond. And it's just like everything else that you buy or everything else that you subscribe to. Like there's tiers for everything. And so you can set a budget, you can have an idea of what you want to spend holistically, or maybe your parents or family are willing to give you a certain amount of money. But in terms of like setting the buckets for everything, I wouldn't set those numbers in stone before doing your research. And my recommendation is to kind of, before booking things one at a time, I would definitely research the big things that are necessary for your wedding. I'm talking about like a standard wedding, right? Like you need a venue, you need food and beverage, you need tables and chairs, you need plates, flatware, glassware, all of those things. I would definitely, unless it's like an all-inclusive venue, which they usually come with everything in-house. If you're looking at just a blank space, I would definitely see what the other items cost, at least a ballpark range, or do your research, because you don't want to blow like half your budget on just the venue, right? Like there's other things that you have to consider, especially when you're doing a blank space. Now, when you're doing it at like a hotel or a restaurant or something like that, it's a little bit easier to understand because they do or handle a bunch of those items, right? So you don't have to like outsource a lot of it unless you want certain things to look a certain way or have a certain aesthetic or design. But that said, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to set $2,000 for flowers, like without understanding what the budget actually is. Even right now, I'm working on this project that's a brand project, and it's in New York. And I haven't produced something in New York of this level in a while. And I was like, dang, like I forgot how much more expensive New York is and certain vendors are. And with every market, I mean, Los Angeles is quite expensive as well. But, you know, if you're planning a destination wedding, like, and you see your friend's budget who got married in like Temecula or something, and you're trying to plan a wedding in Italy, like it's not going to be the same. So do your research before setting a budget and booking big vendors. And then to vendors about money, I wouldn't like, I see a lot of vendors complaining about people saying they're too expensive or out of their budget. And, you know, if the client who's declining is being mean about it, or not mean, but off-putting about it or whatever, I understand like that's frustrating. But you know what? Like it's not, I don't think you should or we should be mad at people for trying to negotiate, because as a planner, I'm always trying to negotiate with my vendors as well. And so if someone really wants to work with me, I've been flexible, like I said before, depending on what they really need. And I try to revise the scope in a way that's going to make sense, but also not going to put me in a bind. You know, I've done favors for people, for friends who I feel like um, it's hard to do favors sometimes, because even though I say I'm not going to expect such and such, it's hard not to expect certain things on the back end, like a review or like at least like some gesture of appreciation, whatever that may be. It doesn't have to be monetary. But you know, it's hard to do that. So unless you're ready to just do a favor for the sake of doing a favor, or meet someone's budget because you're truly just willing to do it, I wouldn't do it. But I also wouldn't get mad at clients for trying to negotiate, because that's just business, you know? And if your answer is no, then it's no, and they can move on. The other thing that I've been seeing is, you know, ghosting people. And I think when a couple has booked a vendor, it's definitely unacceptable for that vendor to ghost the couple. Like that is crazy. The anytime I see anything about that, I've gotten inquiries from people who said, "Hey, like I booked a coordinator or planner, but they have ghosted me since it's 2 months before my wedding, and I followed up, followed up, followed up, and they took my money and they have not responded to me." I think that's crazy. And even if the vendor has something going on, if you're in the service business and you know you've booked events, communication is all you have to do is send one note or ask someone to send a note. Hey, like I can't do this wedding anymore. I'm really sorry. Here's your money back. You know what I mean? And so I find it hard to believe, or I find it very difficult to understand, like why vendors, after they take your money, would ghost you. So to vendors, don't do that. Because that's really just bad business practice. And I think it's really shitty to do to someone who's planning their wedding, especially because it's personal money, you know? Um, and so don't do that. And then for couples, I see vendors getting upset about like, I just want to know, like, I don't want to keep chasing this person. And they're just ghosting me and not responding to me if they want to move forward. And I did used to get really not upset, but just like really kind of stressed out or have anxiety about people who didn't respond to me. But you know what? I don't think we need to waste energy on people who have obviously moved on, who have found someone else, and that's okay. Like they're price shopping, whatever. Like I don't want to waste time anymore or energy on people that aren't going to bother to respond to me. And I don't take it personally. That's just me. But I'm just saying this to vendors because I feel like it would be a helpful reframe. Like, hey, they have probably decided to move on. If they come back and want to hire you, great. And if not, then um, I do like a series of follow-ups, and then if they don't book a call or if they don't go forward, like that's totally fine. And then also for couples, I see a lot of notes about like, oh, it takes forever for them to get back to me, or there's vendors who just have never responded. And that is going to be the case. Like I mentioned, there's just people who are not great at business or not great at like managing because it's a side hustle or whatnot, and they just can't stay on top of things. And if you don't hear back, maybe send a follow up. But honestly, if a vendor doesn't respond to you within a week, I would say I would move on from that person because it's kind of indicative of probably how they're going to um, behave or act while, during your whole wedding planning process. And I don't think that kind of delay is what you really want to have patience for or practice patience for. Wow, the money part of it all was quite long. I will link some of my budget videos. I should probably make a updated one, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea of how to budget and how to kind of like approach that part of it of your wedding planning. Lastly, I would use the internet for inspiration, not comparison, not thinking that this is exactly what you're going to get. There was this huge debate online about a shade of pink from this cake baker, between this baker and a client who was getting a birthday cake who gave her an inspo image, and she felt the baker did not deliver and left her like a really bad review and all of this. And as the service provider, I don't know all the communication that went down, but I think as a service provider, it is important to communicate when you can't do something or say it's going to be in the vein of something, which I feel like maybe she did. And also she gave the client the money back. So to put like a scathing review online, I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit of bad juju. But I think communication in general is really important for creative elements. It's really hard for creatives to like exactly replicate an inspiration image, especially like something like flowers, because not everything's in season all the time and it just depends on that. So I would definitely give a little bit of grace when it comes to that, but also I think creatives also need to be able to express when something is not going to look exactly like something. I've been in situations even as a planner, like I felt like I communicated everything that I needed to communicate and we went over everything, yet it just did not get delivered or executed the way I wanted on the wedding day. And it happens. It happens for a ton of reasons. And as a planner, as someone who works in the industry, I have a lot of empathy and I do give a lot of grace, I feel like, to my vendors, but there is a line that you don't want to cross, right? When you're providing your services or your creative vision, like helping bring a creative vision to life. So I think all that to say, use the internet for inspiration, give the creatives their space to do their work. And for wedding vendors and creatives, I would definitely just be mindful of the communication that you provide to your clients because, as I mentioned, you're leading the couple. Like they're expecting you to be the expert. And even if they're really, what's the word, specific about what they want, if you tell them, like, hey, I can't really achieve that because X, Y, and Z, or that's not enough money, like the budget you have for what you want, you should be able to, or you should definitely educate them and lead them through the process in a way that's going to be helpful to them to understand, not in a way that's like putting them down. And I think there's really an art to that part of it. Was that helpful? I really hope it was. Um, I, I feel like so much of wedding planning just is dealing with people and managing personalities. And that's what I see people talking a lot of, they talk a lot about. And it's fair because, with the many, many events and weddings I've planned, like I hate being in a place where I feel compelled to complain about a situation or about somebody, and I don't like to be in that headspace, me personally. Yes, being a mean girl is fun sometimes, and being a mean girl is necessary sometimes, or just shooting the shit with other people in the industry just to talk about it and just to get it out there. But at the end of the day, I don't ever want to bash somebody, clients and vendors alike, for not doing something or doing something or saying this or saying that. I just want to focus on what I'm trying to get done. You know what I mean? That's already hard enough. And so that's just why I created this video today. And I hope it kind of helps just level set your headspace, level set, or just give you a little bit of a reframe, maybe you can offer some grace to your clients. Couples can give some grace to their vendors, and everyone can just try their best. You know what I mean? Like for me, I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I do always try to do my best. And as long as I feel like I want to do that, I feel like I'm going to stay on course of building this business, because I feel like the minute I lose that joy or the minute I lose that purpose or feeling, like it's time for me to not do it anymore, right? And yeah, like I said in the beginning, I feel really blessed and privileged to be able to do what I do and do what I want to do and build a business and life that I love, and just to be happy and to be joyful. And I hope that this wedding planning journey is that for you. And I hope anyone else or anyone who works in the industry, I hope that you're doing this because it also brings you joy. And if it doesn't, I hope that this helps you reclaim some of that joy or find some of that joy again. If you did find this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could press that like button. You can always subscribe for more content. I show up here weekly on Wednesdays as much as possible. And if you could share the channel or video with anyone else who you think might find it helpful, that would be great, because it'll just help my channel get discovered. And I really, really appreciate your support and you watching it to the end. And I will see you next week. I'm Jane Yu, and this is Wedding Planning Wednesdays.